Before I start today's video, make sure you watch part of my video from September 5th, 2021 called Beautiful Las Vegas Departure to SLC. Go to the 9-minute mark and watch the takeoff. This older video is very similar to today's video, but our climb out, which will be from the same runway, is going to be different, and I'm going to explain why here. But for now, it's a new day and a new climb, and I am ready to share it with you all. Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I've got a flight today out of the Harry Reid Airport, and you're going to come along with me. Ah, Las Vegas. It sure can be an exciting place with its glitzy lights and glamorous activities. Great food, great shows, and great hotels. What is there not to like? But I'm headed out to the airport. I find that every time I come here, I find something new to experience, and the same applies to my flight today. While to the untrained eye, my flight may look the same, a careful look at what's going on brings a thrill to the flight. That's what makes flying exciting, and today I'm going to explain it all to you. I'm actually flying to the same destination I flew to the last time on my channel, and I'm even on the same aircraft type today. But what's different is our climb out. I have arrived at the Harry Reid Airport, where I have one bag to check up to Salt Lake City today. The check-in area is in a separate building from the gate area, a unique layout for a U.S. airport. So I always make sure I get to the airport early because it's necessary to take a train to the gate area. This train takes passengers below ground so they can enter the satellite from below. This train ride is not necessary for all carriers, but it is for my airline today, which operates out of the D gates. Upon arrival in the satellite area, I took in all of the sights. The gate area is composed of 4 concourses. I'm now in the D-Gate satellite area, and my flight will be operating out of the D-Gates in this concourse right over here. This is a great airport, wide open spaces, and I love the Welcome to Las Vegas sign behind me. As usual, I've arrived at the airport super early, so I'm going to take the time to do some plane spotting at the various fingers of the D-Gates. Each of the 4 concourses look very similar, but they handle gates from different carriers. Each of the concourses has a central area where you can find restrooms and many places to eat, and they're often adorned with artwork. Just walking by an Air Canada gate to Montreal, and there's a lot of French being spoken here. From Canada to the US, here are 2 Frontier aircraft preparing for departure. I'm liking this part of the terminal. Want to head to Mexico? Viva Aerobus can take you there. Unfortunately, there are some screens on the window, making it kind of difficult to see the airplanes, but it is very sunny outside today. Nonetheless, this is still a great modern-looking space with some great food and shopping. Whenever I visit one of these stores, I get that international feeling and kind of want to leave the country, but today I'm just taking a domestic flight. Let's go check out another concourse of this satellite. Here we can find a Centurion Lounge, a really welcome lounge at any airport. Sorry, but I don't have access. Moving sidewalks allow you to stay still while looking out the window or taking in some of the airport art. As I work my way down this concourse, I pass by its central area. It's very similar to the others. This concourse lets in a lot of light and provided some unobstructed views like this American A321 headed to one of its hubs. Here, rather than at the gates, the airline desks are in front of the boarding areas. What a beautiful day it is here in Nevada. Inside and out, this is a great place. Here I had an opportunity to get close to a Sun Country 737, and I found a great vantage point to see the D satellite's own ramp control tower. This is not to be confused with the air traffic control tower, which handles traffic on the taxiways, the runways, and in the airspace nearby. Before I head on over to my gate, there's one more area to explore. Again, it's similar to the other concourses of the satellite. From this spot, I've got some great views of the E-gates, which is part of Terminal 3. Passengers arriving or departing at these gates do not have to take the train like I did before. But now it's time to head on over to the concourse that I'll be leaving from. This is the final of the 4 concourses that I'll bring to you today, and I'll be leaving the concourse by means of a jet bridge. That means I'll be flying again very soon. My gate is at the very end of the concourse, and I again walk through a similar path with gates on both sides. One of the gates is hosting a Hawaiian A330 getting ready to leave for Hawaii. That would be nice to be on, but today I'm going to be flying on a 19-year-old Delta Airlines A320, and I'll be seated in row 3, seat A. So let's get on this plane and head up to Salt Lake City. It's time for boarding, so let's bid farewell to Las Vegas for now. I was one of the first passengers to walk down the jet bridge. It was a very short walk to my plush and comfortable seat in the first class cabin. The only problem here is that the window shades are down. All right, I'm on board the A320. Step number 1, open the windows. It's going to be a beautiful day for flying today. I'm looking forward to my flight today. So let's talk about our climb out off of runway 8 left today. The last time I took off on runway 8 left with the same destination, we climbed out straight. Then, against what you would think, we turned to the right, to the south, and made a climbing right-hand turn circle that ended on a northeast heading towards Salt Lake City. Why would we have done that? Well, you see, it was a very hot summer day, and during the summer months when the air is less dense, we climb slower, and in order to head northeast to Salt Lake City, we would have had to have flown up to 100 miles to the east before turning left to avoid traffic flying into other area airports. To actually save time, the solution was to make a climbing right turn around the city, then proceeding northeast. But today is a much colder day. We've got better engine performance and can climb faster and turn left to the northeast towards Salt Lake City quicker. So once we take off, we'll fly runway heading for a bit, flying away from the city, and then make a simple left-hand turn and head on course. It's actually a pretty quiet day here at the Harry Reid Airport, so I'm expecting to get out pretty quickly this morning. As expected, pushback onto the very wide ramp was conducted very efficiently as the ramp tower located above this satellite monitored us. It only took a few moments for the tug to be released from this A320 before we started up our engines and taxied under our own power under the control of the taller air traffic control tower. The airport was experiencing a runway change, but we were lucky that as we taxied out, the last arrival under the old runway configuration for this part of the airport, a westerly flow, was landing, and all subsequent operations were on an easterly flow. Our taxi route had us parallel the 2 south runways so we could see everything occurring on the runways. That, of course, is for those who are sitting on the left-hand side of the airplane, like me. With only a handful of aircraft on the ground in front of us, the ground controller in the tower handed us over to the local controller in the tower, and in a few short minutes, we were asked to line up and wait on runway 8 left. We are ready for departure on this 14,515-foot-long runway. As the Southwest 737 ahead of us became airborne, we were issued takeoff clearance without coming to a stop on the runway. I'll let you listen in to the unique sound of the A320 engines as I am seated right in front of them. now we are airborne. After a brief taxi on the ground, it is fantastic to be back in the skies again. The tower controller is handing us off to the departure controller as we continue straight out. Now remember, it's a cold day in Las Vegas, so we're climbing nicely. We're also climbing over a highly residential area. For visitors to Las Vegas, often the only view of residences is just the view out the airplane window. Many people go from the airport to the Strip and back to the airport without seeing much else, so it's very nice to see what the area outside of all the glitz and glam is. We can see how Las Vegas has sprawled out over the decades, making it the 26th most populous city in the USA with a population of over 640,000. In our climb, we can also see mountains. Las Vegas is in a valley called the Las Vegas Valley, and we started our takeoff roll at the base of the valley at around 2,000 feet above sea level. Now, if this were a hot summer day like my last departure from Las Vegas, our climb out would be completely different with a circling climbing turn. For now, we'll just continue on towards the east as we're climbing high enough to be able to be clear of conflicting traffic without having to fly too far out. Continuing along, we can see how the city limits eventually give way to the rugged mountain landscape. We now see Frenchman Mountain out the left window with its distinct pointed peaks on the east side of the Las Vegas Valley. Many of you know about the famous Paris Hotel on the Las Vegas Strip, but why is this mountain called Frenchman Mountain? There's a story to everything. Paul Wathelet was an immigrant from Europe who developed a mine there, believing that he would find gold. And eventually, the mountain became known as Frenchman Mountain because locals believed that Paul Wathelet was from France. Paul was actually from Belgium, which is a country where French is spoken, along with German and Dutch, but it's definitely not France. Locals refer to one of the peaks as Sunrise Mountain because the sun rises over it in the east in the morning. Many passengers begin to be concerned when they see mountains so close to a city airport, but we've climbed high enough to remain clear of all the mountainous obstructions in the area. Our straight-out runway heading climb out gives us plenty of space to remain clear of the mountains. We lifted off from the runway only 2.5 minutes ago, and already the scenery is drastically different from the urban metropolis that we just left. Imagine how long it would take by car to get to this point. We are now high enough to be clear of the traffic in the area. We're certainly higher than the mountains, and the cooler weather is helping us with our climb. We're now ready to point the aircraft towards Salt Lake City to the northeast. Once we make the left turn, we'll continue our climb and keep the general northeast heading for the en route phase of flight. This was a very simple climb out of Las Vegas today. Under the watchful eye of air traffic control, we're going to begin that left-hand turn and take in the beautiful scenery of the American Southwest. The left turn affords us the opportunity to finally see downtown Las Vegas and the famous Strip. So I hope you were able to see the differences in the climb out today as compared to the climb out on September 5th of last year. So much of the flight was the same, like the aircraft type, the departure runway, the route, even the flight number, but the climb out was completely different even from the same runway. So if you expect one thing during a routine flight, you may not get it, and that's what this video points out. Today's climb kept us further from the city, but I was still able to catch a glimpse of the Strip, although it was from pretty far away. The rest of this flight was quite routine as we made it to the en route phase of flight. We climbed to our cruising altitude quickly, and I was offered a small snack for this very short flight. The en route phase was very scenic, and as usual, the approach to Salt Lake City never disappoints when it comes to the view. I was lucky to be on the left side of the airplane for this great approach as we bypassed the runway to the west, then turned right to line up with the runway and eventually land. My flight is coming to an end. I hope you learned something from this video and how different times of the year dictate different climates even when everything else remains the same. That's what this channel is about. I want to bring you, the viewer, along with me as I add a certain level of depth to a flight. I like sharing with you how a passenger can imagine they're on the flight deck by putting you in the know. This makes the flight so much more enjoyable, and I'm glad to have you with me as I fly around. I really enjoyed sharing my experience with you today as I flew into SLC. Thanks so much for watching my video. If you haven't subscribed to my channel already, don't forget to subscribe. I've got so many more great videos to share with you. Thanks, everybody.